Look who's
Hello.
here.
How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm well, except I'm better at swinging a sledgehammer than doing an Instagram live. But hold
Oh,
on, let me
stop it.
let
I
me
do not
adjust my
believe that
camera.
for one moment because you're a pro, man. This is your jam. I, on the other hand, am completely lame about it. But I'm so glad that you are on because I think we have a lot in that we share. One is a passion about clean energy in the built environment, meaning homes and businesses. Two, I think you're Canadian, aren't you?
Yes, I was born in
Me too.
Canada.
Me too. I was
Nice.
born in Canada, in British Columbia. Are you from
Me too.
BC?
I am, yeah. And I
Are you
think
from
that's
Vancouver?
I was born in Vancouver, raised in Maple Ridge.
So I was born in Vancouver, and my parents brought me to the U.S. when I was 4.
Nice.
So there you have it.
Well, I
So
feel like that's one of the things that, because we grew up literally carved into the forestry. It was millions of acres of forestry right behind us, and we had a horse farm, and so that was kind of my upbringing. Dad and mom and dad taught us to be stewards of the environment, and make sure that we're always looking out for our neighbor. And so I think that was part of what created my passion as well today.
I love it. I mean, so I'm totally obsessed with clean energy jobs. My grandfather was a logger in British Columbia. Your grandfather was a coal miner. Is
He
that right?
was. That's right. Yeah.
All
And
right.
that
So
that's actually one thing that I do want to bring up to say that I hope that, through conversations like this and with my audience, I have a really great relationship with my audience. I want us all just to sort of reset and realize that we're on the same page. Like we're all working together here, and we don't need to vilify people who worked in fossil fuel energy, because we wouldn't have the developed world that we have today, the developed nation that we have today, if it wasn't for our coal miners and our utility workers. And so the big thing for me is trying to find a way for us to evolve a lot of these jobs. There's a lot of places across America where the towns are dying because they were all, coal towns, or, the utilities have shifted, and maybe they're bringing in energy from other states. And so we want to make sure that we can revitalize these places and find jobs in the new clean energy market, because that is where everything's shifting now that it's good for business.
you are preaching my sermon. No, you really are. I mean, I say that all the time. These workers that have powered us for 100 years, we want them, even though the market is shifting away from coal, we want them to see themselves as powering our nation for the next 100 years. And what does that power look like? And that's why it's great to be able to talk to you about this today. For those of you who are just joining, I'm Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm. I am so lucky to be here with Jonathan Scott, and we're going to be talking about infrastructure, clean energy, buildings, all of that. So it's very exciting. So you, Jonathan, you reach such a huge audience, and I'm wondering, for someone like you who's great at communicating, how do you talk about something like solar in a way that carries a broad appeal to the point that you were just making?
So it was interesting. I kind of stumbled into the whole solar situation years ago when I was putting solar on my house in Vegas. And the actual process itself of getting the solar installed was pretty straightforward, but then getting the utility to agree for me to turn it on, and trying to figure out all the loopholes and the credit situations. And then all of a sudden the legislation changed right after I got it, and net metering was killed in Nevada, which put most of the solar companies out of business. And that's when I thought, like something's not right. It should not be this hard. I just wanted to do something that I thought would be good for the environment and also kind of bring my bills down a little bit. And so that's how I fell into it. And so it's the same thing with my audience. I'm not preaching to anyone saying that, this is how you have to live and this is what you need. But when I did my documentary Power Trip and I toured around the country, I met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Americans, talked to them about their energy needs, and realized a lot of people are struggling. And these are not Democrats or Republicans or independents. It's everybody. Everybody from every walk of life had the same interest in making sure that solar is affordable. And that was the number one complaint, is that people said, it's not realistic. I tried, it's too expensive. That's why we're having this conversation, is because I would love to be that, warrior to make sure that we simplify the process and also bring the cost down so that everybody can benefit from doing something that's good for the environment, for our kids to breathe, and also brings your costs down.
Totally, totally. I mean, one of the problems that you just mentioned is the permitting challenge, right? It's such a bureaucracy in many places. Now, some places have got their act together, but some places, a lot of places don't. And so it's a barrier, right? And how do you bring down the barriers? So maybe you combat the bureaucracy with technology. So DOE we've got 17 national laboratories. A lot of them are working on technology solutions. And one of the technology solutions that we are working on that we're going to be unveiling, and I'll make sure that you get access to it so you can help to promote it, because it's public for free, etc., is a solar app, which you just put in your information, all the behind the scenes stuff is done, and it spits out the permit that's necessary. So we want to make it super easy. But also I will say that we are also working on other ways to reduce the cost of solar too, both from a technology point of view. So we've already seen the cost of solar panels, solar technology drop about 90% over the past few years. And our goal here in the solutions department is to see it drop another 60% over the next few years, so that solar ends up being, and it is right now because it's free, right? It's sun, but you want to make sure that the way you put it on your roof and the permitting and the racking, et cetera, all brings down the cost. And so we're working on that. And another affordable way of doing this involves community solar. And I think because you've traveled around, you probably have a sense of this, because community solar can be a really great option for people who aren't able to install solar panels on the roof because they don't maybe own their own house, right? And they maybe still want to be able to have clean energy, or maybe even the roof conditions of their house doesn't support, maybe it's too shady, or maybe it's roof size or whatever. So people who live in moderate income households and who live in low income households, or people who can't otherwise put solar on, can benefit from something called community solar, because you get with your community and you buy clean energy and get the benefit from it, even if it's adjacent or across town.
Well, that's what I thought.
Have you been a promoter of that too?
Yeah, and I included a whole segment in my film about that, because it's something a lot of people don't realize. If you're in an apartment building, you can actually still have solar on the building, and there are a bunch of companies that work with landlords and work with building owners to try and find these solutions that then can benefit all of the individual residents. There are also amazing business owners in communities who have said, you know what, I have this big flat roof. I am more than happy to be a participant in this community solar initiative. And then they allow a lot of other residents within the neighborhood, maybe in low income housing, maybe in areas where the rooftop won't support it. And they say, no problem, I've got the roof space, let's all work together. So I do think that's a great part of the shift in dynamic. I'm seeing at the local level and even at the city level, I'm seeing people work together and say, let's solve this as a community. And we are seeing amazing advancements. I do want to just pat you guys on the back a little bit, by the way, when you're talking about your investment with the DOE and all of the things. People have to realize some of the R&D that you guys are supporting right now is unbelievable. And whether it's from concentrated solar, people didn't realize that the sun can actually generate power long after it goes down, and there's all these different technologies that will bring costs down too. Perovskite, a different type of solar cell as well, I think is incredible.
Talking about perovskite.
Yeah,
awesome.
For people who don't know, it's they're right now with the panels that that people recognize today, it's a different type of chemical makeup than other ways to potentially create solar cells. But the cool thing too with some of these technologies is they're readily available elements. The panels can also be domestically manufactured very easy. And so I really do think, I hope that people give you guys a little bit of a kudos, because you are busting your butts to try and make sure that we're creating American jobs, that we're bringing the costs down. And it's important. We have to support these research facilities so that we can figure out what the next best thing is.
1,000%. You're talking about making more solar panels in America. Unfortunately, because we didn't have a strategy as a nation to be able to manufacture the products that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or that allow people to be energy independent, if you will, we allowed our economic competitors to take a lot of that manufacturing. And so we have to get serious as a country about how we are able to manufacture that kind of thing. So really, like, for example, last month, First Solar announced plans to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into a manufacturing facility in Ohio. We need more of that. And so a couple of the things that the administration is doing and that we're doing, in addition to investing in cool technologies like you've described, perovskites, as well as battery technology, and we can talk about that in a second, but is that we are, so DOE has 17 national labs. And what we want to do is to make sure if we're investing in the research for these cool products and the people who are doing that research, we want to, when they take their great idea, their business to scale, when they make it into the marketplace, that they make it in America. So if you as a taxpayer are investing in the research, you as a taxpayer should benefit from these jobs being created, the products being created in America. And so there's this whole made in America for all of these clean energy products strategy.
Well, and
in Congress, in a bipartisan way, they are saying, both sides of the aisle, that we are going to create tax credits for those who manufacture these products inside of America, which will reduce the costs, by the way, for those who end up purchasing them.
Well, I think that's the thing that's exciting, is this is one area where, you know, there was a time when, you know, a lot of fossil fuel utilities were trying to make it an either or. You're on this side or that side of the debate, and now we're sort of at a point where we agree, like, there's a place where utility workers will have more jobs, where solar workers will have more jobs, where all around we'll have a more robust system, a strong economy, and I love that. And actually, speaking about all these ways that you guys are trying to bring the cost down, I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to jump in with one of the questions I got from my community. I put it out to people to say, hey, what are some of the things that are important to you? What would you like to know? And the questions I got were amazing. But I got one from Jennifer Kushler, who was saying, a big thing for her is, you know, with a lot of people who are on a fixed income, how are they going to even be able to afford solar and some of these technologies? So where does the equity issue come into this? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I wonder if you can just talk about some of the investment you guys are doing to try and make sure that when people have an appliance in their home that is coming to the end of its life, we want to make sure that the clean one with the cool tech is the most affordable option when they go to replace that appliance.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of points here. Number one is that we have in the federal government, especially for moderate and low income families, we have assistance it's called the Weatherization Assistance Program. So for example, if you have a family of 3 and your income is $60,000 or less, the federal government, in partnership with local community action agencies, will go in, will replace your windows, will weatherproof your home so it's not leaking, and will help with appliances. I mean, honestly, on the appliance side, if you put in energy efficient appliances as a citizen, on average, you'll save about $650 a year just on not sucking out more electricity from your bill. But I will say too that you mentioned the word equity, and equity is just a really important aspect of things, because unfortunately, people who are low or moderate income end up paying, as you can imagine, a disproportionate amount of their income on energy. And so, for example, up to 30% of poor and moderate income people spend of their income on energy, whereas if you're above the median income, it's about 3%. So, you know, we need to bring that cost down. It's one of the reasons why we are really focused in our agency on making sure that the benefits of these technologies, the benefits of the investments that are being negotiated right now in Congress on infrastructure, go to communities that have been at the back of the pack, that have been left behind. So both from a technology perspective, a policy perspective, and an investment perspective, we want to bring down the cost of clean, free, cheap energy that's out there out your window right now.
And the one thing I did notice when I interviewed all those people across the country, I met a lot of people who actually had to make the choice, were they going to pay their power bill or put food on the table for their kids? That is in America. Like, that is crazy. And so, you know, and also I think it's really unfortunate that, you know, a lot of, you know, fossil fuel burning power plants end up being located very close to low income communities or you know, minority communities, where you have this real issue where people don't have the financial means or the political power to fight back. And
Yeah.
so I love the idea that, we're tackling it at not only the consumer level with the products being affordable, but also trying to make sure we can do things that will, transform these into clean power plants or change the locations, make sure that we're not having all those emissions pumped into the atmosphere around these communities.
Right. It's a health issue. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, air pollution that is causing kids in these communities to have to bring inhalers to school because they can't breathe the air. It's just, it's right. Latinos on average breathe, I want to say 63% more of the pollution that leads to heart and breathing deaths
Yeah.
than they make. African Americans is 56%. We want to, the bottom line is we want everybody to breathe healthy air,
Yeah.
right?
No one's arguing with that. Yeah.
No one's arguing with that.
And the thing is, we're now at a point where it's good for business, which is why utilities are all embracing utility scale solar now. But we also want it to be good for the individual, bringing down, the household expenses, making sure that, people can be in control of how they power their homes. And I think one thing that is really important to me is to make sure that I can use my platform and be a voice for people who do feel like they're, being ignored. Right now, 42% of our energy-related emissions, CO2 emissions, come from household machines. So trying to figure out a way that we can decarbonize the home, shift people into cool tech that also happens to be green tech, I think is amazing. So we manufacture with our company over 10,500 products for the home. And so we're trying to say, is there a way we can take all of these, people who are much smarter than me, who work on our team, we have hundreds of employees. We want to make sure that we put a conscious effort into aligning with you guys, aligning with our audience, and find the solutions that are going to help everybody.
Okay, wait, so tell us, what are the cool things that you're seeing out there that get to this question? Like what's hot?
Everything you've seen on Star Trek now exists. Well, maybe not the teleportation part, but everything else. No, I mean, cool things. So when you think about your home, for example, and we talk about decarbonizing the home, it means like when your furnace goes, now heat pump technology, which is way more efficient, doesn't burn any fossil fuels, is a great option across the country. But looking on the cooking side, induction elements, you can actually install an induction cooking element under your stone counters so you don't even see it. And you can then, if you have the right pots, you can boil in less than a minute your water. I mean, it's incredible.
Okay, wait, say that. See, this is so amazing because if you're, some of the people who really like the chef cooking shows like natural gas stoves, but induction can be just as cool.
Okay, this is always the joke we have on our show because people are like, I gotta have gas.
Yeah.
Gas is not an even cooking experience, so you really have to know what you're doing, whereas induction is perfectly controlled, completely even. You can get woks, you can get giant skillets, you can get everything you need. There are some of the biggest chefs in the world that are now showcasing, okay, you know what? I've changed my mind. This is pretty fantastic. So, and keep in mind as well, in America, there are a lot of communities right now, too, where they don't even have the access to gas. So, I want, people to start to understand the cool tech that's out there. Even looking at things like smart panels right now. Everyone always thinks of, like my smart thermostat or my doorbell or whatever it is, but they don't think of all the brains of all the electrical in your house is your electrical panel. So you can integrate a smart panel where all of a sudden, say there's an emergency, say you have an electric vehicle and it's plugged in your house and the power goes out in the house or there's an issue of some kind, you can actually control a critical load from your car. Your car can power your home in an emergency. You look at places like Texas where they had the power outages and the chaos that ensued. We need to look at the grid. We need to look at smarter, diversified ways to generate our electricity. And also, as a community, I bet you'll start to see a lot of communities develop where communities themselves have their own integrated backup systems so that we don't, something like that, what happened in Texas, would just be like, impossible.
1,000%.
It's something we wouldn't even consider.
1,000%. So you have microgrids. So not necessarily the huge. Microgrids can be backup as well as you can have the regular grid, but in your community. But say a word. You're talking about a battery. Your car actually being a backup. Say a word about batteries and what you guys are seeing with respect to cool uses of battery storage in your home.
Yeah. So, and by the way, just to mention, when we're talking about distributed generation, the utilities are not going anywhere. I think, there are some utilities that are having a hard time grasping the new concept of where energy is going. We have the same wires in the same grid in a lot of places that from when the grid was invented, which is crazy. You know, we've come a long way. But utilities are going to be an important partner. We need to keep them there, and we need to keep those workers employed as well, because they're going to be integral in figuring out what the new system is going to be. But when we look at storage, I think it's going to be where, you know, people, when they're buying a home, you pick out your stone, you pick out your cabinet package, your hardware, and you pick out your battery. It's going to be a natural part of having a home. And how cool would that be if you all of a sudden have, you know, a house, the power goes out, it doesn't matter because you have your own backup. It's seamless. You don't lose what's in your freezer. You don't lose, you know, your data on your computer because it crashes. All of these sorts of things are really important. So they're, you know, right now, you know, lithium batteries are really the technology that's, you know, we're running with. And at some point there will be a battery revolution that will transform things. All of a sudden your batteries get this big to power a whole house.
Yeah, we're working
and again,
on that.
yeah,
Julia,
you guys are the
know,
ones.
We are working on that. We're working on the substitutes for lithium, but we also want to be able to, in this country, extract our own lithium. Right now, we get it again from our economic competitors. We want to be able to recycle those batteries because eventually they'll be at the end of life, and there's a whole nother industry around reusing the stuff inside of the batteries. And we've got something called that is focused on really future kind of technologies, and we're just looking at a battery now that's actually powered by dirt, the iron in dirt. So there's going to be all sorts of different materials.
Well, and you said it right there too, that one of the biggest, you know, complaints people have about solar, about batteries, about all technology, your iPhone, your Android, whatever it is the waste issue. And I do think that there's going to be a real demand for figuring out how to solve that waste problem. You know, a lot of components of solar panels are recyclable. A lot of them are not. And especially when you have some of the rare earth metals, they're hazardous. So you want to make sure you're disposing of them properly. So I think there's nobody, and I know this with your department as well, with the DOE, nobody is saying we're turning a blind eye to that aspect and we're only focusing on, you know, the production. No, like this is a big picture thing. We're all in this together. The good thing is if we can immediately start to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, we're going to see all of these benefits that we didn't even know about. When people compare energy side by side, you know, right now, the least expensive form of energy to produce is probably wind. And then solar is immediately after that. Coal is one of the worst because it's, you know, not only the cost of production, but also the after effects. When you look at the toxic coal ash and the human health effects and the environmental cleanup, no one ever balances those after effects into the cost of the energy that we use. Natural gas is the same. There's a lot of damage to the environment and human health. So if we actually implement those numbers, it's not even close. And with some of the new technologies that you guys are investing in and trying to develop, it's great because we'll reclaim billions, if not trillions, in all of those long-term health and environmental costs. And that can just be injected directly back into a stronger economy, paying down the debt. All of these things are very exciting. Can you tell I get excited about it?
I am so happy. I mean, first of all, you're excited about it and you know so much about it. So that's, I mean, that is an excellent combination. I will say though, your exhortation to, for example, the workers on the utility grid and workers in general, this sector, this clean energy sector will create in America millions and millions of jobs, manufacturing the products, installing the products, servicing the products. And when we say the products, we're talking about everybody from utility workers who need to work and add capacity to the electric grid, to people who are building the batteries, who are building the solar panels, who are installing them, who are building the pipelines. Honestly, there's all kinds of jobs for all
and they're
kinds of people.
Good paying jobs, which is there's going to be a resurgence, I guarantee you, in the skilled trades, because all of a sudden people are realizing not only is there a huge demand, because even over, you know, COVID, coming out of COVID, people are renovating because they've realized, wow, I don't like the space that I'm cramped in. All of these things, you know, people want to improve their space, but you can go to school. You can immediately come out of a skilled trade education with a six-figure job. These are really valuable roles and they need to be filled. So I'm excited to see this resurgence in skilled trades, this resurgence in development into the new technology era that we're entering. It's a very exciting time.
90% of the jobs in this clean energy economy, according to a recent Georgetown study, only require a college degree with some training. And they are great paying jobs, many of them union jobs, which is very exciting, with good benefits, life, career sustaining jobs. So bottom line, we love this sector. I'm so grateful to you for being on with me and with all of your followers to get them excited about clean energy as well. I can't run off without one more promotion, which is we want to make sure that everybody gets their vaccine. Just have to say that. I know it's not related to clean energy, but we need America to get back to normal. And if we all want to be free of this, the best way you can be free of it is to get a vaccine so that you don't have to worry about it, right?
I agree. It's been amazing being able to get back out and see friends, I saw my parents. I haven't seen them in over a year. I got to see my parents who are 77 and 87. And I think that's the big thing is maybe if we kind of reset a little and we look at what's important, spending time with our family and friends, getting back to life as usual, getting back to work, all of these things are important, and it's as easy as getting a vaccine. So that's why I did it. But I also want to thank you for answering. I'm actually going to answer after the fact. I'll do a separate video to answer a bunch of the additional questions that came from my fans. But I know your office has already sent some of those answers through. But you guys have been amazing. And thank you for making sure that we're looking at broad solutions that will really help all families. And, I just can't thank you enough for putting a spotlight on this.
Right back at you. Thank you so much. Thanks to all your viewers. Let's go do this. Let's make clean energy in America.